At one time, Hollywood respected Charles Brabin as a contract director. By bearing and demeanor, he was a reserved English gentleman who communicated well with actors and brought his projects in on budget. Yet Brabin would go on to shatter that impression not once but twice. He shocked colleagues by taking for his wife the screen's most outrageously sexualized actress, Theda Bara. And then, after being fired from directing Ben-Hur in Rome, he dared to buck the studio system with an unheard-of $500,000 wrongful termination lawsuit. In part, the unmaking of Ben-Hur in Italy is also the story of Charles Brabin. Who was this proper and unassuming Englishman, and what did Hollywood do to him? The first British invasion of American culture took place long before the coming of pop bands in the 1960s. It began at the end of the 19th century with an art form known as the flickers. Actors and writers from Great Britain arrived by the boatload in New York City at the very heart of a vibrant and growing film industry. A trio of British émigrés founded the American Vitagraph Company in 1897. Business partners James Stuart Blackton of Sheffield and Birmingham-born William T. Rock joined Albert E. Smith of County Kent, England. By 1907, Vitagraph was the top producer of flickers in the U.S. Hungry for more directorial talent to feed the market, Al Smith brought aboard his older brother David and hired fellow Brit Charles Brabin. Brabin was born in Liverpool in 1882 and came to New York in search of a Broadway acting career. In his spare time, he performed before the cameras at the Edison Manufacturing Company, picking up technical tips by watching the incomparable Edwin S. Porter. Brabin honed his talents on a working trip to England and Italy for the Edison Company. Mainly, though, he remained a free agent. By the time the First World War broke out, Brabin could boast over 100 shorts and feature-length films on his resume. Working at a variety of studios, he was considered a workmanlike, if unremarkable director of star vehicles for the likes of Francis X. Bushman and Beverly Bain. Brabin's breakthrough came in 1919 as both the writer and director of a dramatic showcase for the infamous Manhattan paramour, Evelyn Nesbit. Thou Shalt Not was a sympathetic study of a fallen woman, played by Nesbit, and the injustice of her being shunned by her congregation. The story played to Brabin's chivalrous nature and won the hearts of scorned women everywhere, including the notorious new star of Cleopatra, Theda Bara. The success of Thou Shalt Not marked a turning point in the life of Charles Brabin. It forced him to demand more depth and relevance from his movie projects. It also made him take a fresh look at his marriage to socialite Suzette Mosher. He was primed for change when Theda Bara entered the picture. She was looking for someone to direct her next film with stage impresario David Belasco. La Belle Russe was meant to reveal another facet of the former Theodosia Goodman of Cincinnati, Ohio. Whatever she was selling, it made Brabin feel like an underage lad back in Liverpool once again. No sooner was his divorce complete than he married Theda Bara in July of 1921. For a time, the twosome was the toast of Hollywood. But marriage did nothing to enhance Bara's draw at the box office. While her husband's career was about to take off, Bara's contract at Fox was allowed to expire. Brabin scored a popular hit with Driven, a story of feuding backwoods moonshiners that one critic compared to Nanook of the North. It was followed by Eleanor Glynn's 6 Days, adapted for the screen by none other than Wonder Girl June Mathis. It was the story of a physical affair between unmarried lovers trapped together underground for 6 long days and nights. Brabin was finally being given his due as a director. Goldwyn Pictures trusted him to take the helm of their production of Ben-Hur abroad. It meant being separated from Theda Bara for perhaps a year, but it was a huge career leap forward that he couldn't refuse. Executives at Goldwyn had been so desperate for a big film like Ben-Hur that they paid a crushing $600,000 for the rights. Worse, they agreed to a fatal stipulation. In exchange for using the old Cines studio in Rome, they would pay to have the derelict facility brought up to modern standards. That condition would prove to be Brabin's downfall. No director on earth could have produced something of the scale of Ben-Hur while also overseeing the construction of an entire studio. Acquiring materials, costumes, and electrical power consumed Brabin's days. At the same time, there were political attempts to sabotage Hollywood's partnership with Mussolini. After 6 months, Cines was almost up and running, but little progress had been made on Ben-Hur itself. Driven toward bankruptcy, Goldwyn was overtaken by a new corporate master known as Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Almost its first act was the firing of Brabin, Mathis, and half the company in Rome. Brabin accepted the executive's decision to replace him with director Fred Niblo, a maker of safari films in Africa. But what the proud Englishman would never accept was the reason the studio gave for letting him go. It issued a press release saying Brabin had been too ill to fulfill his duties. Furious, Brabin instantly wanted to sue MGM. But he was warned that in a small company town like Hollywood, it would amount to career suicide. But Brabin ignored the warnings and became the only employee to file a breach of contract suit. After some weeks, Brabin settled out of court for the chance to get back to work. He worked for a variety of studios and became one of MGM's most reliable senior directors. Today, he is remembered not as the man removed from Ben-Hur, but as the maker of such audience pleasers as The Bridge of San Luis Rey and The Mask of Fu Manchu. While Theda Bara's film career largely ended in the 1920s, her marriage to Brabin lasted through the 1930s and the 40s, ending with Bara's death by stomach cancer in 1955. Brabin lived 2 years more, passing away at age 75, in his home at Santa Monica, California.